Good morning and welcome to the State Ethics Commission meeting. Today is March 15th and the time is 9:01. Robert, can you do the roll call vote?
Yeah, I just started.
Of course, be happy to. So if you can please indicate if you are both present and also if you are alone for someone's in the room with you. Starting with Vice Chair Ray Gralty.
Present, and there's no one here with me.
Great. Commissioner Hong.
Present and alone.
Commissioner McCarthy.
Present, and there's no one here with me.
Thank you. Moving and then Chair recognizing you are in the public meeting room. Moving to staff, Susan Yoza.
I'm present and alone.
Key Campbell.
Present and alone.
Nancy Neufer.
Present and alone.
Benita Chang.
Present and alone.
Jennifer.
Present, and I'm alone in Patrick's office. I'm having some issues.
Thanks. Just noting your title is Patrick Louis, but we recognize who you are. And then our newest staff member I'll introduce in a second, Jared Elster.
Present and alone.
Also, I am present. I am also alone.
Good.
Chair.
Welcome, everybody. It's nice to be back. I just returning from Hanoi, Vietnam on a Rotary mission. So it's good to be back home. Rob, you want to introduce our newest staff member? I didn't have an opportunity to meet him.
It would be my pleasure to. We are joined by Jared Elster, who is our new investigator. The position's been vacant for about 6 months or so, so we're really happy to have him on board. He's coming on a full-time basis. He has extensive police background, mostly on the mainland. Most recently, he's been at Windward Community College. Tremendous amount of experience, a real go-getter. It has some terrific stories to tell and share, which I will let him do. But we're already dumping a lot of casework on him, so he's already quite busy. But please, if you have a chance, take the time to say hello to him and get to know him better.
Fine, welcome aboard. Would you like to say anything, Jared, to us and the public?
No, I'm just glad to be here. And yeah, Robert is correct. He is dumping a lot of stuff on me, but I'm trying not to get overwhelmed. But I'm very happy to be here. So let me know if you need anything.
Oh, good, and welcome aboard again. All right, going on to item number 2, Executive Director's Report.
Sorry, Chair, do you want to do the approval of the minutes?
Oh, thank you. I think corrections to the minutes.
Also, just for the sake of if there's any technical difficulties, I think there's I don't know if you want to give just well, I guess there's nobody in the public, so maybe for now that could be skipped over.
I assume I didn't see anybody from the public, so I'm not going to ask for any comments. Is there? I see somebody with a telephone. That's Commissioner McCarthy.
That's right.
Yeah. Are there any corrections to the minutes? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of February 15, 2023.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner McCarthy. Is there a second? Second by.
I did not move. Excuse me, I did not move to approve.
It was I, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was Commissioner McCarty. Moved by Commissioner Gralty, second by Commissioner Hong. Any discussion? All those in favor, roll call.
Vice Chair Gralty.
Aye.
Commissioner Hong.
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy. Actually, I believe you weren't present. Is that correct? So
I was not present.
okay, so we'll note you excused for the purpose of this vote. Chair.
Aye. No
Chair.
objections, motion's carried. And now the Executive Director's Report.
Thank you very much. I apologize. Moving and switching to computer, I'm now a little less prepared, but give me just a second. I'll catch up with it. So just briefly, reviewing the training statistics in the month of February, we did hold 3 training sessions, and one of them was with the governor's office, and we actually went and met with essentially most of the members of the cabinet and did a training with him and their staff. In addition, we did 2 general Zoom trainings, both sort of participation in the one was 68 participants and others 56 participants. So, you know, a relatively light-ish month in February. However, I should note that DHERD recently added our self-directed program to their training portal, which covers most of the executive branch. And so I would anticipate in March, we're going to see a pretty large increase in the number of participants in our self-directed, and that will probably be a pretty sharp increase overall in the number of participants in our training program. Moving on to guidance and assignment statistics. Oh, I'm sorry. One additional thing that we did add as an attachment, I apologize. We did have a extensive discussion last meeting sort of about the effectiveness of our training session. And one of the commitments we made is to do a report back on sort of what our surveys are looking like with regards to the trainings. And so if you take a look, we have actually attached an attachment, which is a encapsulation of 1,848 responses out of a total of 2,749 attendees. And so you can see that 61% on a scale of 1 through 5 gave us a 5 and the quality of the training. 34% gave us a 4 out of 5, and 5% gave us a 3. And there's no statistically relevant answers below that. So, you know, just even being just even a little skeptical, that's still very high marks on average from the folks that are reviewing the training. And so I think we can sort of walk away saying that people are walking away from our trainings feeling very positive about it. I still think there's a lingering question about the long-term effectiveness of our training. And I think that's something we're going to have to continue having discussions about. Things that we did talk about last meeting included doing evaluation surveys later in time. And I think all those things are things that we should continue looking at. Let me pause there on the training. Any questions or thoughts?
Yeah,
Mr. McCarthy,
congratulations.
I think
go
it
ahead.
speaks well for our staff, training staff, that they did so well. I think we're expecting that would be the case, and it's true. So I'm very pleased with it. I think maybe there might be a follow-up at some point in time just to make sure that our numbers stay strong.
Thank you. Actually, I just want to say congratulations. 61% in the start is good and very good. That's really up there. It's interesting that some of the comments, I don't know about more technical issues for folks. It was, to me, technical enough. And more quizzes. I don't think that I need any more quizzes. I've barely passed. So congratulations. Any other comments from the commissioners? And we don't have any public, so I don't think we can answer that.
Hawaiʻi Ice better.
I get music too.
I told the band not to play until we're done.
It's a great song, though.
Thank you. Rob, anything else?
So again, I just want to be really clear. We asked for a law mandating ethics training. It's always been a commitment of ours, but it's something I think we're just kind of continue working on. So again, high scores, this is wonderful. I think a lot of our commitment right now is trying to make sure we're getting as many employees going through the training. So we're meeting the requirement by the end of the year for as many employees as possible. But I think it's going to be a long-term commitment to trying to make sure that the training is as effective as possible. Some of the ideas that we have explored and just, sharing to, say these things that we're going to continue working on is potentially trying to develop on our website a lot of very short training videos, how-tos, essentially. How do I do this? What do I do in this case? And trying to make, you know, the website a really good resource for people who are looking for more information. Looking at trying to do follow-ups with people who've taken the training. So maybe after 2 to 3 months, having an automatic email that goes out to them, sort of reminding them of some of the things that they learned and trying to keep the engagement up with them over time. Trying to do surveys, again, 3 months, 6 months down the road with anyone who participates. These are all things that we're going to continue exploring. I mean, admittedly, I think the priority is going to be on trying to get people through the programs first. But, you know, it is going to, I think, just going to have to be an ongoing commitment on all of our parts to make sure that our trainings are as good as possible.
Rob, I got two issues and concerns. First question is, what percentage so far have, out of our state employees, have taken this training? That's number one. Is it mandatory that they all take it? And the last question is, like I think you mentioned, how effective is this training? What barometer are we going to use, or what scale? I mean, I remember I asked the question, does that mean we're going to have diminished number of complaints? And you said there'd be more. I mean, how do we know it's working?
Great question. And I think that's ultimately going to be, we could spend a long time talking about it. I don't know if I have a great answer for you right now. I think, you know, we keep educating and just trying to keep making sure that, well, sorry, let me pause, answer your first question first. So total number of participation, that is one of the suggestions that Commissioner Hong brought up earlier, which is trying to show the total employee counts by department and being able to show the number of participated. Employee counts change, obviously. And so I think one of the things that we're looking at trying to do as we reach out to the various departments to ask, which we frequently do, to ask who is, you know, who's going to be required to do the live trainings. So we're sort of getting who is in this position, what, you know, et cetera. We get that information from each department regularly, that we're going to start asking what the current or quarterly employee count is for that department. And so we should be able to report that information, and then also then be able to show how many people have taken the training. Again, it's not going to be an exact number, to be clear, but should be a decent approximation. So that's the type of thing that we're going to be looking at, trying to get as we start trying to do the surveys to each department. So, you know, hopefully in 3 months or so, we might be able to start trying to show some of that. Last year, we had 9,000 people participate in our training. So, you know, that gives you an approximate number. We have, you know, we have over 50,000 total state employees. So it gives you an idea sort of roughly where we're at as of last year. My expectation is in March, we'll see a significant increase just because the addition to DHERD. The other large block is Department of Education. We are doing a training with them in about a month. And part of that training, we're doing the training with their supervisors, the superintendent, the complex area superintendent, et cetera, essentially a leadership team. And a part of that training is to also discuss how to implement training more broadly. And about approximately, I think there's about 20,000 employees with DOE. So that is a very large chunk. And so the hope is that we'll be rolling into their learning portal and be able to capture a lot of those folks as well sometime in the summer. UH has been very aggressive, as I think many of you are aware, and I think, you know, really deserve some kudos. We've had really high compliance with the University of Hawaii. So again, with DHERD, Department of Education, and UH, I think we'll see a pretty significant chunk of the plus 50,000 employees or so.
Robert, this is Harry McCarthy again, and I might be a little bit behind the curve on this one, but has the ethics training been provided to members of the legislature, or is it to be provided to them? And if so, I would be very interested in seeing what the results there, how they compare to this.
So yes, training has been offered to both the Senate and the House. They both took different courses or approaches to it. The Senate largely encouraged the staff to participate, and relatively few numbers of senators came. And so we've been actually following up with the individual senators who haven't met the requirement and encouraging them to sign up to our general ethics training. So they have been participating in our general ethics training. And I would expect, you know, we're going to have 100% compliance with regards to the Senate. The House of Representatives did it differently. We had a closed door session training only for representatives. And I think we had nearly 100% show up to that closed door training. We did not do a survey just because it was a in-person. We could have passed out a paper form and probably should have, but we did not actually try to poll with them afterwards. So apologies. I'm not sure I'm able to give that report.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Any comments? Okay. Oh, by the way, Rob, what's the penalty if they don't take this training, the legislators? Is there anyone? Any?
So I think what we've been telling people is that our intent is at the end of the year, we have a live database that shows the participation, and you can look it up by department, et cetera. And so I think
looks like around right after you came in, around.
Patrick, apologize. You're if you can mute yourself. Thanks. We have been telling people that we will be publicizing that database. And so the idea is there'll be a public report of who has taken the training, and implicitly you can also look up who has not taken the training. And so my expectation is, a vast majority of all the people who are required to take a live training will have taken the training, simply because I don't think they want to be on that. Hopefully we'll find a better title for it, but sort of that hall of shame essentially moment. So that is, I think, sort of the approach that so far we've been taking. If there is a situation where somebody in the future has an ethics violation and we're looking at a charge, my suspicions, we'd look at whether or not they've done a training and add that as an add-on charge. But I don't anticipate trying to broadly go after tens of thousands of employees with charges simply for not taking the training.
Robert, is it fair to say that with state employees, it's mandatory, but with the legislature, it's voluntary?
No, it is mandatory for both legislators, employees, and board and commissioners. All are required. Okay. They have, there's some gray to this, so I can get in more detail if you'd like, but just generally speaking, most folks have until the end of the year to meet that requirement.
Okay.
Actually, Rob, I think it's a good idea to publish the names of those who have not taken the training, because I hate to have them come before us and says, well, I didn't know. Well, did you take the training? And I definitely don't want to see another English and Colin, was that your names? Pop up.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think I'd use another word than shameless, maybe something a little more palatable and more diplomatic.
How about scofflaws list?
So again, agreed. I think probably the approach we'll take is essentially, here's the public database. You can look up each department and you can look up with the participation and who's taken it, much like you can look up, albeit through one of the media, you can look up salary reports for each individual employee, for example. I think we try to make that information similarly available.
I would think it would have a big impact on their voters, Anyway,
well, my hope is also if we have an agency it's really underperforming, I'm hoping that will also be some level of public pressure to get their numbers up.
Make the departments accountable. Any other questions or comments by the commissioners? None? Hello? Where is somebody? Robert, Rob, anything else under executive director's report?
Just briefly, you have the essentially the statistics regarding to new incoming complaints. We had 19 complaints, 25 gifts, invitation, travel coming in, 2 guidance, 4 judicial selection commission requests, 1 record request, and 2 essentially special projects. Similarly, we closed out 4 complaints, 21 gift, invitation, travel requests, 1 record request, and 7 projects in the month of February. We also had 2 anti-fraud matters come in February. I do have a couple of things to cover with regards to searches, miscellaneous things. I'll try to be expeditious, but I apologize. A couple, I think, important things to go over. One, I always want to thank staff for their hard work. But I especially want to recognize what they did yesterday. We did hold a spring cleaning and went through our old documents, essentially according to our record disposition. We were trying to select items that could be disposed of according to the record disposition, and also trying to identify materials that we could scan and put into electronic format. We did make a pretty significant dent in the number of documents in the office. And Chair or any other commissioners, if you're in the office, you can see a large pile of boxes that are marked to be shredded. But we will likely have to have several more spring cleaning days, in the near future, with sort of an attempt again to be a little bit more efficient, but also be in compliance with our record disposition policy. Another topic, our lease expires in June. Carolyn Choi and I have been touring other office locations. And in at least one location, we invited all the staff to come take a look. Just briefly talking about our needs. We have 2 staff members who are currently working remote full-time and have a remote full-time agreement with us. We may add 1 additional staff member next year, assuming our budget is approved. That brings us to a net of 10 employees working in the office. Many of them are on a hybrid basis, meaning that they are working part-time in the office and part-time at home, which does give us some flexibility in the amount of office space that we need. As we move our server to a cloud-based system, we may also need less space for IT equipment. So, sort of in sum, we may be able to reduce our overall office footprint, but I do hesitate to try to reduce it by too much. We don't know what the future will hold, particularly if more staff start to work in the office. Based sort of on this projection of need, we will likely start to negotiate a small reduction in office space with our existing landlord, and we'll also be looking to negotiate with another location at Pioneer Plaza with the intent of being able to compare the 2 options fairly. Once that's occurred, I anticipate probably bringing those options and explaining the rationale for whatever decision we try to move forward with. We have also, in the same vein, asked the comptroller if there is any state location office space available to us, recognizing that if they do have state office space, that would be sort of the first choice. However, historically, that space has never been available. Any questions on that before I move on to the next topic?
Any questions? No comments? And the reason why we can't stay here?
We can. And so one of the options will be staying here, but potentially trying to give up a bit of the space as a means to try to be fiscally prudent with the state's money.
Okay. Next.
So on a more personal note, I'm honored to announce that I was selected to be a reciprocal professional fellow with the U.S. State Department Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs. President Biden recently met with the president of Moldova, and he highlighted ongoing U.S. assistance to help Moldova strengthen its political and economic resilience, including its democratic reform agenda. So I suspect I was selected as a tiny, tiny part of President Biden's commitment. So as a part of this program, I will be traveling to Moldova in June. We're currently planning on a series of forums, lectures, and meetings with the intent of comparing Hawaii and Moldova's similarities and discussing some of our lessons learned in developing our ethics code. Obviously, because of Moldova's close proximity to the Ukraine, it is possible this trip may get called off depending on what the current status is.
Well, congratulations. And
thank you.
Keep your head down.
Yeah.
My
that's
wife
right.
expressed. Sorry, go ahead.
No,
Any comments?
My only comment is congratulations, Robert. It was.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's a well-deserved appointment.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? If not, we're finished with the executive director's report. How about the 2023 legislative session? You want to cover that, Rob?
Yeah, a lot of great, exciting news. It looks like in large part, almost all of our legislative package is moving forward and will likely be passed into law. Let me go through each section or category. So first, turning to the budget, which is HB 1514, that has now been transmitted to the governor for approval. The total amount appropriated for the Ethics Commission is $1,541,514. With regards to financial disclosures, essentially amending the fines and the procedure in which we collect those fines, particularly with regards to late or missing financial disclosure statements, that is passed over through the Senate and has been referred to the Judiciary Committee and the Finance Committee in the House. And I've gotten a similar bill has already passed the Judiciary Committee in the House, and I've gotten a commitment from the Judiciary Chair and to hear it relatively soon. So we still have to get through the House on that bill, but I don't foresee significant obstacles. With regards to HB 136, which requires the legislature to post on its website a report of legislative allowance expenditures. The bill has been referred to the Judiciary and the Senate. However, both the Senate and House have already committed to do this, and the Senate has actually already started to do this and posted on their website. I anticipate the bill may die as a result. However, I think obviously we're focusing on the fact that the legislative allowances will now be posted online and be visible to both us and the public, I think is a significant accomplishment. And I'd like to do a tip of the hat to Susan in part for helping draft this and helping push this along. HB 141 requires each state legislature to disclose the any interest that they have with lobbyists or lobbying organizations. Has passed out of all committees and needs to be voted on the floor. HB 142, similarly, which prohibits lobbyists from making gifts that are otherwise prohibited under the Ethics Code, is similarly passed out of all committees. HB 137, which requires a statement of expenditures to lobbyists essentially to identify the bill, resolution, or budget item with some specificity, has also similarly passed out of all committees. HB 138, which requires the Ethics Commission to administer a mandatory lobbyist training law, has similarly passed out of all committees. SB 805, which amends the definition of administrative action, essentially attempts to define lobbying of the executive branch more broadly, or to include lobbying of the executive branch under our existing lobbying law, has been held pursuant to our request, and we have made a commitment to look at this concept more specifically in the interim and try to propose something to be considered next year. With regards to HB 717, which is the anti-nepotism bill, it is set for hearing this afternoon, and wish Key Campbell luck. He is going to be testifying in support of it. And so far, I think it looks pretty good as far as trying to get it passed. Post-employment, SB 187. This is not one of our bills. However, we did testify in support of it. It expands the post-employment restriction on legislators from lobbying from 12 months to 24 months. It has been referred to the Judiciary in the House, and it is the sole referral. So again, I am reasonably confident that if this gets a hearing, it'll move forward. HB 140, which gives us more discretion in document retention as well as destruction, has passed out of all committees. So that's, in summary, sort of essentially all the bills that we are currently tracking. Two bills that have essentially been deferred indefinitely and are not going to pass include a bill to try to provide funding to the county ethics commissions, which maybe is not too surprising in of itself. And the other bill is the Public Bill of Rights, which was trying to create a mechanism for the public to be able to bring complaints to a sort of independent body, as well as trying to maybe codify a bit more of some of the interactions between the public and legislators. That has been held based largely on testimony submitted by the AG expressing concerns, which I think maybe were a bit unfounded, but expressing concerns about another agency reviewing what the legislature does. So that's in sum what's happening with the legislature. I do want to recognize a number of the staff that worked on these different bill ideas that have been helping provide advice. And again, it's been a lot of time and effort, but again, very pleased to see so much of our package passing or looking like it's going to pass this year.
Yeah, well, Rob, congratulations to you and the staff. I think that's really wonderful that we get all of our wish list, accepted. I have a question. After all the legislation is finished and finalized, will there be a summary of each one of the bills that were passed for the public digestion in the newspaper, so everybody knows what the standards are for our government officials and also our legislature?
So I guess two answers. One, the Civil Beat in particular has been doing a really good job of tracking the, I guess they're calling it the Foley Commission now, the Standards Commission bill proposals, and they have a itemized tracker and have been doing a lot of reporting on sort of what the status of these various bills are. The Star Advertiser has also done a editorial sort of at the crossover, highlighting some of the more critical ones. So yes, I would anticipate fairly extensive media coverage. I think it's also a great idea for us to try to put out a press release and do some attempt to educate folks sort of what's passed, why it's important, and why it's significant. Finally, I'd also kind of anticipate that if there is a signing of these bills, there may be an attempt to try to do something with the governor's office and maybe invite all the commission, for example, to be present for the signing of these bills.
That'd be a good idea. And I think maybe we should take the initiative to go and I'll summarize all the bills for public consumption and then give it to the newspapers. It's better for us to do it than somebody else doing it and misinterpreted what we've done. Any comments from or questions from the commissioners? How about the staff? Okay, moving right along. Item number 4, discussion of adjudicatory procedure.
Thank you, Chair. There were some questions that are coming up sort of about our process on how we do adjudicatory investigations. And I thought it might be helpful to just do a very quick summary of sort of how we handle matters that are referred to us. I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, I think this is also kind of helpful to the extent that the public reviews this video later. If they have any questions, it's something we can refer them to as well. And I maybe also put this sort of in the context of broader transparency about what we do. I think I have heard some concerns about folks who submit a new matter to us, maybe being unhappy that they don't get updates or they don't really know what's happening with our investigation. Recognizing this and recognize the fact that our statute expressly states our investigations are confidential. There's pretty limited reasons for us to explain what's going on with one of our investigations. We are also looking as we update our server system for ways to try to more broadly report out what we're doing with complaints and where they are. So X number of complaints came in, what's the average time for resolution? How many cases are sort of being held or stayed, and just trying to provide more public transparency about sort of the stuff coming in. And so, just giving you some sort of advance notice, so that's something we're trying to look at potentially for, essentially next year's annual report or sort of moving forward generally. So typically what happens when a new matter comes in, right now, the staff would start a preliminary investigation. Generally speaking, looking at either anonymous information, an anonymous complaint, or if there were a complainant gave us their name, we'd follow up with them to try to find out more information. Typically at that time, we'd only be looking at public documents, stuff that's readily accessible. things that are easily discernible, if possible. If there looks like there's a probable cause that an ethics violation occurred, we would then ask in an adjudicatory session for the commission to issue a resolution to investigate. And at that point, we'd have essentially broader investigatory powers, including the ability to subpoena and administer oaths of witnesses. Again, this would be a confidential process. And then if at that point there's a determination that there's a violation, typically several things could happen. One, we could determine that maybe the violation is something that should be settled and try to initiate a settlement process, which would then again be approved by the Ethics Commission. And typically those settlements historically or in the recent history have always been public. If we are unable to reach a settlement, it is likely at that point we'd ask the commission to issue a charge. The respondent would have an opportunity to respond to that charge. And if so, we would are unable to settle or unable to find any information, we would then continue to do a further statement, and eventually we'd move to a contested case hearing. One of the questions that did arise, and part of the reason why we're having this conversation, is what can we sort of publicize or say to the public or to the agency where the employee works, et cetera. Generally speaking, if we settle at that point, there's an agreement, and that can be disclosed, and that is part of the settlement process itself, and that can be shared with the agency or department. If we make a finding through a contested case hearing, we have the ability to refer that back to the agency, and in fact, in some cases, we have an obligation. For example, if it's the legislature, to refer it back to the legislator, we have an obligation to refer it back to the legislature for further action. If we, at an early part of the investigation, make a determination there's some problem, usually that is still going to remain confidential. It's not something we can share. And in large part because there hasn't been due process, the other side hasn't been able to have an opportunity to give their side of the story. And if we've somehow made a mistake in our investigation, we can't necessarily publicize that. That's a quick summary. And again, I know many of you are quite familiar with it, but again, I thought it'd be pretty helpful to go over this just to try to resolve some of those questions and do it in a public format. Are there any additional questions, or would staff like to share anything about investigations generally?
Rob, for those of you who may not know, I asked Rob to go ahead and discuss this matter. My concern is that the department heads, I believe, should be accountable for their employees, and they should know, and we should know, how many employees have violated the ethics code, and make sure that the department heads be held accountable for their employees, and much less the fact that we should get them publicized if we can. To me, being military, and some of us are, you got to hold the person who's on the top accountable and let him decide what to do and how to remedy, if there is an influx of violations, ethical violations. Any comments from the commissioners and then the public?
Mr. Chair, I would say that when violations are proven, it's correct that we then inform the department heads. But until such time, when it's only a charge, we're still in the investigatory portion of it. We're not yet able to say whether or not the person did violate the ethics code. So we need to be wary when the line is crossed so that it justifies notifying the department head. But it doesn't happen at the outset. It happens at the end set.
Let me be more clear. I agree with you. My intent was after it's all over and as a final decision, we let, what is that old phrase? You're not guilty. You're innocent and proven guilty. Until that happens, we can go ahead and make the department heads aware of the infractions. No, not at the beginning, at the end, when everything's finalized. Any other questions or comments?
There's one route I should note that is allowed under the administrative rules, which allows us to refer a matter to an agency head for administrative action. And typically how we've interpreted that is if we receive an anonymous complaint and it's, not necessarily our jurisdiction, we might refer it to the agency for them to take action on it. It's not necessarily our Kuleana, but maybe it would be theirs. And we usually will refer it basically saying we haven't validated, this is just passing on a complaint to you for potentially you to investigate and look into. If it is a complaint we received where the complainant has given their contact information, we'll typically ask them first before we take that step.
Thanks. The second reason why I wanted to bring this forward is if there is a prospective violation, and let's say the criminal aspects of being prosecuted, why should there be a prohibition of our not charging that individual and staying in an investigation until the criminal procedure is over? We do that in a corporation counsel. If one of the police officers is charged criminally and he's sued, we will still defend, but all parties would stay in the investigation or discovery until the conclusion of the criminal case. Because let's give you an example. What have we done for English and Colin? Was it Colin? I forgot his name. We didn't do anything.
Again, recognizing this is a sunshine meeting, I'm just hesitant to talk about specific adjudicatory matters, but just in general, yes, you're right. We certainly can proceed forward with a charge. To be clear, we do need to meet a evidentiary standard in order to issue a charge. And, it may be a case-by-case basis, whether or not there's enough information out there for us to initiate the charge, or are we going to have to do an investigation in order to kind of get to that standard? Obviously, if a defendant has pled guilty, that is a pretty easy threshold. But if it's still something that is being a complaint filed in a criminal matter, for example, there is going to be some level of, do we have enough information to file a charge? Typically, we have worked with the criminal agency. So again, we have a pretty healthy relationship with the AG's office, for example, and we'll have a discussion with them as well. I think the thing that everybody wants to avoid, we don't want to, somehow interfere with the criminal investigation by interviewing witnesses that they're also having ongoing interviews with. And so, we'd want to make sure, again, and I think you recognize this by suggesting we would stay our investigation. But secondly, there's probably also just a policy analysis for this commission is that a prudent use of staff time and resources if it is being pursued on a criminal side, right? We are still of limited capacity and have a lot of stuff on our plate. And again, that's just a policy call, but in general, you're right. We have overlapping jurisdiction, and there's no reason why we couldn't also have a charge stayed and then consider action after the criminal proceeding is done, or even in some circumstances, it may make sense for us to both pursue at the same time.
Any questions or
Yeah.
comments, commissioners?
I have a
Yes.
comment. I would endorse what Wes's point was, and also Robert's about not using resources unnecessarily. But I think when there's a clear ethical violation, and we have the evidence, I think we should definitely go forward, irrespective of whether or not there's a criminal case pending. You never know what's going to happen to that criminal case. They may plead out, they dismiss the case. But it's important if we have the evidence to show a ethical violation that we pursue that independently of the agency, because our interests are a little bit different than theirs, and I think it's important that we really kind of validate that interest when the evidence shows it.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commissioners? I have one more thing too, and I already mentioned it in the last session. And it's too late to introduce, but I'd like to get an increase in regards to the fines that we can impose as an ethics commission. I was a little taken aback by the fact that I was reading in the newspaper, the campaign spending commission has a $2,000 limit, and we only have $1,000 limit. And so if someone takes a $50,000 bribe and we whack them with a $1,000 fine, I know it's basically more just, I guess, to set an example. But I'm gonna leave that to the staff. I mean, I'm thinking of something that gives it a little more teeth than $1,000. That's sort of like a little slap on the hand.
Kind of embarrassing.
I'm sorry?
At the last meeting, we did agree to look at what sort of is the national standard and to have a proposed bill for next year, sort of looking, what other states have done, and have a proposal for you to consider for next legislative session.
Can you let us know by the next meeting? I'm curious. Life imprisonment, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we would, again, if you ask us to do it by next meeting, we can. I don't think the intent was necessarily to do it by next meeting, but plainly as a part of our legislative package.
No, I'm saying what other jurisdictions do out of curiosity, that's all.
Okay.
I'm just comparing our, fine system versus the campaign spending. We should get more teeth, I think. Any of the comments from the commissioners or questions? Okay, if not, moving right along, I believe it's, the Akana case, number 5. Oh my gosh. Rob?
No updates on this matter.
Well, Commissioner Gralty, I'm sorry to say, this will still be around after you leave. You can come back. All right, moving right along. Number 6, consideration approval of minutes of January 19th, 2003 executive session meeting. We need a motion on this, Rob.
We would need a motion to go into executive session to approve the executive session minutes.
Move approval for executive session.
It's moved by Commissioner Hong. Is there a second that we go move into executive session?
Second.
Moved and seconded by Commissioner Gralty to move into executive session. Any discussion? Roll call.
Vice Chair Gralty.
Aye.
Commissioner Hong.
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy.
Aye.
Chair.
Aye. See no objections, motion's carried. We are now in executive session, so. Thank you, everybody. We're back.
Public is back in the meeting.
Oh, yeah, we do have a public. Item number 7, evaluation of Executive Director Robert Harris. Unless there are any objections, we're missing one of our commissioners, that's Commissioner Tobias. And I would suggest that we wait until we have a full house before discussing the evaluation of our Executive Director. Any comments or?
Chair, just for the record, I think we probably need to make an indication on the record of the general summary of vote of the executive minutes, just for the record, when you come back into sunshine, I think, right? Is that right, Robert? Or Susan?
Yeah, you can.
No, say it again, Anita.
Generally, just once you come back into sunshine, you just give a short statement to indicate the executive session minutes were approved so that the public knows generally, but without getting into discussion of the substance of the underlying matter.
Thank you for that. For the record, the executive session minutes of January 19, 2023 were approved in executive session. Is that okay, Bonita? All right, thank you. Evaluation of Executive Director Robert Harris. Unless there are any objections, I'd like to hopefully have a full house before we discuss as commissioners the evaluation of our Executive Director. Any comments?
Chair, if I may, do you have all the
Yeah.
information you need from Susan, recognizing that she will likely not be participating in the next meeting? if there's information you need from her, then obviously I'd encourage we do that.
Well, let me ask this question, since Susan will not be here for our next meeting unless she wants to come back pro bono. Wait,
Let the record reflect that she laughed.
Knows the laughter.
I'd be happy to come back.
Oh, okay, you heard that, that's on the record, thank you. No.
That's a binding contract.
We'll give her $1 offer, acceptance, and consideration.
Who would be taking over this aspect? I mean, the evaluation, so we can ask questions. We can't ask you questions.
I can come back. There's no problem with that. I'll just be on vacation leave, so I'm still a state employee. I'll be back.
Oh, all right, okay. And I wasn't joking either. Okay,
It was
thank you.
serious.
You're coming back on vacation. You can't get overtime, by the way, I know that.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thank you. All right, that answers my question. So unless there are any objections, we'll have the evaluation of the executive director, hopefully at the next meeting when we have a full house. Any comments by the commissioners? How about by the our public left, wherever he was. Okay. Any other business to be transacted? If not, officially on the record, on behalf of the Ethics Commission, this is actually our Assistant Executive Director's last official meeting, I believe. And we wanted to bid her farewell. And after 32 years of service, thank you for her service. And we wish her well and in her future endeavors and enjoyment of retirement. Big round of applause.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Any commissioner want to say anything? Ray, you've been
Yeah,
with her
I
a
would.
long time.
Yes, we owe Susan a big debt of gratitude, even when we were dealing with the rules. She was instrumental in helping us through that process, and many other questions and problems that we've had over the 32 years that she's been on the commission. It's hard to believe that she's been 32 years in this one place, but we're gonna miss her and we wish her well, like you say, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else?
Let me add my 2 cents. As a new commissioner coming onto the commission a couple of years ago, I found Susan's analysis and reporting of some of these difficult cases to be so helpful to me. And she had great insight based upon her knowledge and vast experience. So I think we're all going to miss her very much. So congratulations, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hong.
The good news, Mr. Chair, is that if she retires, will she be 12-month prohibition post-employment, or will it be 24 months? So she better hurry up and retire and beat the clock.
The agency can contract with her. Post-employment exceptions.
Commissioner Hong, any last comment? I guess not. Anyway, Susan, congratulations. Enjoy your retirement.
Thank you.
Service, as we say in the military. And with that, if there's no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
Commissioner McCarthy, is there a second?
second,
third.
Second by Commissioner Galti. Any objections? All do we need a roll call? Roll call. Robert?
Vice Chair Gralty,
Aye.
Commissioner Hong,
aye.
Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Chair.
Aye, motion's carried. We will adjourn and we'll take a 5-minute break, okay, for everybody? 5-minute break. It's now 10 o'clock. We'll resume at 10:05.